Maybe now they stay here, and eventually we want them feel they belong to Taoyuan.
Taoyuan sits at the center of Taiwan's global connectivity, home to more than 2.3 million people and anchored by Taiwan Taoyuan International Airport. Just outside Taipei, it's one of Taiwan's fastest growing cities, not only in population, but in how it's rethinking urban design. I spoke to Chiang Nan-Chih, Director General of Urban Development in Taoyuan, about how he's working to reshape the city's future.
Yeah, I think TOD is really important to transfer, I think it's car-oriented city to pedestrian-oriented city. But I think it should have four very important things to come together. The first one, I think we need to think the transport policy and the land use policy should be aligned in the beginning. I think that is the most important things. And the second thing, I think, is the mixed use. We need a mixed use in the TOD area. And the third thing, I think, is workability and the open space. I think that is really matters. And because the TOD always want to create new lifestyles, so for Taoyuan, we think we need to add one more thing. I call this affordability.
So let's use Taoyuan as a test case. Taoyuan is the fastest growing city out of all the municipalities in Taiwan, right? Population is growing, infrastructure is growing, but how central is the idea of TOD in that growth story?
Yeah, I think TOD plays a very critical role for Taoyuan now. Especially, we not only deal with the growing populations, we also need to deal with some very critical urban issues. For example, we need to think about the airport connectivity and industrial logistics, and sometimes we need to deal with the metropolitan commuting. So I think in Taoyuan, the TOD really make a very important role here. For example, we have airport MRT corridor. So recently we just proposed very new ideas about the affordable housings. That is why I think it's really a very useful mechanism to help Taoyuan to transform from a very ordinary city to a modern metropolitan.
One of the biggest opportunities is the rail corridor running through Taoyuan, Neili, and Zhongli, what local officials call a golden axis.
The first one is this corridor can help us to reshape a new urban form. I think that is the most important things. And the second is we can comprehensively review our housing policy. So maybe we can use the underused land to maybe reorganize the land use. Maybe we can put some industrial land to provide more residential, and maybe we can upgrade the industrial, and we can get a more job opportunity. In that, maybe we can create a totally the new line city in this area. So eventually, maybe we can have a more pedestrian-oriented city form, and we can create more jobs there, and people can live there for everyone.
But how do you turn that vision into reality?
We already proposed a new zoning. We made a mandatory requirement to require the developers need to provide the affordable housing. We will use the very maybe cheap price to sell to the younger family. And then when we get the revenue from the affordable housing, we can build our own social housing. So eventually we want the comprehensive housing policy can be a very important ingredient in our zoning and the urban planning policy.
So there's so many TOD projects dotted around the cities. It sounds great in theory, but in practice, there's issues of housing, there's issues of transportation, there's issues of planning, commercial planning. Where does it most often get stuck? What's the hardest part of the project?
I think in the local government, different agencies have their different priorities. For example, the transport agency needs to think about how to get the balance between the car access and the pedestrian-oriented design. And the housing agency maybe want to use more public land to build the public social housing. But the land agency want to sell this public land to get the money to ease their financial burdens. So I think the most difficult things is how to get balance between these different departments. So finally, we need to find a totally new governance structure to help us to make a right decisions.
So this is very hard to coordinate all of these different agendas internally, but what about externally? So how do you get private developers on board? You know, their idea is their incentive is to make profit, right? So how do you get them on board?
It's a mission for the government. It's not for the private sectors. Right. So for private sectors, they still think about their revenues. Yeah. So I think the government needs to know that. And then, so I think the mission of the government needs to find a good way to help or to incentives the private sectors come together to achieve the urban visions. The government will provide the bonus floor area to maybe encourage the private sector to provide some social housing. But I think the result is really limited. So in Taoyuan, we propose a totally new ideas. We use the zoning to make a mandatory requirement to ask the developers to provide affordable housing, the saleable affordable housing. So one thing is they can get the bonus, and then they are more willing to join these new policies.
You mentioned a lot about housing, providing affordable housing for the citizens in Taoyuan, but are you ever worried about gentrification? So for example, Qingpu as a place, the property market is going through the roof, right? It's growing at a very fast pace. How do you prevent TOD projects from becoming a driver of inequality?
Yeah, I think this is really challenging mission for a government, because if you want a city, it's prosperity, or you want it really develops, sometimes the gentrification or displacement will happen. We use the comprehensive housing policy to provide affordable housing and social housing to the different groups of people. But we also need to think about sometimes the public service or commercial activity, it's fit for these people or not. So now we use our urban design guideline not only to ask the developers need to provide the housing units, they also need to provide a very livable open space.
Yeah, it's funny how you mentioned gentrification in that sense, because when I think of TOD as a model, I always think of Tokyo. So Tokyo is a city where convenience is definitely there, but livability in the central part of Tokyo is not so clear. When a lot of young people are priced out of the central regions, right?
Yeah, I think not only Tokyo, I think a lot of metropolitan have maybe facing the same situations.
Like Taipei as well, right?
Yeah, so maybe we need to think that TOD is really help Tokyo or Taipei becomes more convenient, more efficient, but and also they help this city to grow up. Yeah, that is true. But the problem is we need to think about, I want to introduce one new idea. I call it urban belonging, because this city, maybe they really grows, but eventually the people live there, maybe they don't feel that belongs to them. So in Taoyuan, we want to use different policy to help the people move from Taipei to Taoyuan. Maybe now they stay here, and eventually we want them feel they belong to Taoyuan and belongs to here. So we want to have a new housing policy. They not just live in the rentable social housing. They can own a house here, and then we can create a very livable space for them, and we can provide a very good amenity here or some public facilities here. So I think that is the very important lessons we learned from Tokyo or Taipei. I really want my hometown to be a place everybody can live here and belong here, and they really think that is their hometown.